welcome back to the Meeple Marathon. Today we are going to be learning how to play the Pirate Republic Africa Gambit. So if you watched the video before this, we learned how to set up the game. So the board as it sits has already been set up specifically for the first global mission, and that's the Platte Fleet. So you can play this game in a campaign style where you would start with global mission number 1 and go from there. You can play it as a one-off where you take any mission and just play that single mission, or you can simply play a standard mission, either short or long game, where you play to the first person to get to either 60 swagger or 120 swagger, and that's making a full lap around. Swagger is tracked around the outside of the board. So this right here is set up for mission number 1 of the global missions, the Platte Fleet. Really, the only thing unique of this setup is that there is a treasure ship that has sunk off the coast of Florida here, and there are objective tokens which represent the treasure, and there's 2 per player, so this is set up for a single player game. I'm also going to cover the very simple rules for how to play the game solo along with the rest of the rules, and I'll point those out as we get to them. Before we get to the actual turn structure and round structure, I want to cover a few things, just basics, that will be important to understanding how to play the game. The most important thing is the icons on these tokens here. So this is just a ship token that was flipped over at the beginning of the game because I am the starting player, and so I flipped over all tokens adjacent to me, and so those ones were placed during setup. And here we have the example of a merchant ship. So there's a couple things here. One is that this is a merchant ship. So when you start the game, you start with having initiative against merchant ships and only merchant ships. That means when you enter into a fight, you have more attack options than if somebody else has initiative against you. The stats along the left side are telling you how much of a broadside attack they have and how much of a close quarters attack they have. So close quarters, imagine this is when the pirates would board the ship and are, fighting each other with swords. Broadside attack is obviously the cannons. The stats on the right is what you gain if you successfully defeat this token. So the orange icon with the skull in it, that is swagger. That is the main victory point in the game, and that's also going to be how certain milestones of swagger is how you reach different levels of piratehood in the game. And then this white and black symbol here is your reputation. These are spent in a lot of various ways, so having a lot of reputation on hand is pretty good. We just see here at the bottom that this is a merchant token. It's got the merchant symbol. You'll notice that all merchant tokens just say merchant along the bottom. There are, however, some specific NPC tokens in the game which have proper names at the bottom. Those are used in specific scenarios. So if you ever were to randomly flip one over and it would have a proper name, you'd want to just swap that one out with another one from the bag. The last thing I want to point out here is this flag, the green and red flag that sits at the top in the middle. That means that when we battle against this token, we're going to flip over a tidings card, and that tidings card is going to present us a battle modifier. So things may change. The battle modifier may benefit us, or it may benefit the merchant ship. So we don't quite know. Not every token has this. So you can see here is an example. Whoops, I dropped that one. Here is an example of one without a modifier. So if you were attacking that pirate ship, you would know exactly what you were getting into. Land tokens have pretty much the same thing here. Here's an example of a land token. These are the main forts, the ones with the flags. They also have a cannon attack, a close quarters attack, swagger, and reputation benefit. These guys are also going to give you a treasure card. This is simply just a set of cards over here that you would gain the top treasure card, and this does not get shuffled into your deck in the deck building aspect. This one just sits off to the side. You spend it to gain the benefits along the bottom, and then it goes back into a discard pile. So we know pretty much what's on the tokens. Let's look at our cards and how we can figure out what our stats are. So Here's an example of an opening hand. Your opening hand size is 4 at the beginning of the game, but as you increase in level, your hand size will also increase. And you can see here that we have some of the same stats here. We have broadside attacks. We have close quarters attacks. We also have movement. This is movement you can add. Or this symbol here is represented here as a 1 or a 2. This is the strike fear symbol. This is ideally the symbol that you want to have the most of if you have initiative. So when you are playing the game, you have a set of cards in front of you in your hand, and you'll be playing these cards as you enter battle or as you need to, say, gain extra movement or take a rest action. You'll play these cards into the discard pile, and you'll gain those stats temporarily. So if you enter into a battle, you could play this card for 1 strike fear, and maybe this card as well for 2, so a total of 3 strike fear. You're taking those stats into your battle against the merchant ship. And I'm going to talk more about how you compare those in the section where we cover battles and combat more specifically. But you can see here that our ship, which is represented by this token here, does not have stats on it like these tokens do. Our stats come from playing down these cards. This is a deck building game, so you're always going to have cards in front of you that you're going to play. You do not have to play all of them out. You can save up to 1 between each round, and you're going to draw more into your hand, so you never quite know what you're going to have. But playing the cards down to add up the stats in various ways is how you're going to come up with your stats to use to battle against the other tokens on the board. So that's kind of the main concept of how the game is played. The last thing I want to cover, and we may not come back to this because you really don't need to know these versus anything else, the 2 other types of cards that you can add to your deck are crew cards, which are blue. Now they're going to have the same back as your cards because they get mixed in, or the elite cards, which are red. Crew cards are going to look very similar to your specific pirate deck here. Your pirate deck is composed of, I think it's 10 cards that are exactly the same as everyone else, and then 2 cards that are unique to your pirate. Crew cards and elite cards are going to be very much unique. There's probably several copies of each in the deck, but this is how you're going to mix up your deck as you play the game. Crew cards are going to offer these same symbols, but with crew cards, if you play a crew card down during your turn, the crew card will stay out, and those stats are available to you until the end of your turn. So it is possible to move, attack a token, move again, attack another token, or sometimes there might be more than 1 token in a space. There can be up to 2 tokens, not including like your ship or these other plastic miniatures, 2 tokens in a space, and you can attack them both at the same time. All the while, a crew stays out and helps you and keeps his stats up and going until the end of the turn. Then you finally discard him. Whereas the stats on your regular cards simply get played, used once, and then are discarded. Elite cards are going to offer you immense benefits. These are the best cards to get in the game. There is always going to be 3 crew cards available for you to gain and 3 elite cards for you to gain. They don't have a cost, but you're only going to gain them at certain points in the game. You can't just go out and buy them. Crew cards have stats, again, that you can utilize when you play them down, but they also have these really good benefits down here that can be gained by either spending a reputation or by tapping, exhausting a crew card. This is symbolic of this crew becoming an elite crew. That's how I think of it, as I take this Jacobite here, I exhaust him, and he now has the ability to turn the tables with his elite abilities. Now, what's important to know, though, is that even though you exhausted this card to trigger the more powerful bottom section of the elite card, I can still access the stats on this card. I just can't exhaust it to, say, play a second elite card if I happen to have one later on in my hand at the same time. You'll notice that your cards from your main starting deck also have stat lines. Not all of them do, but all the ones I happen to have drawn did. They also have this same more powerful area, but the only option you have is to spend a reputation token. And reputation tokens are a little hard to come by at the beginning of the game. So deciding upon whether it's worth it to spend your reputation is obviously a choice you need to make. Whereas the elite cards, instead of the reputation, you can exhaust a crew card. So crew cards are very handy. They can help you do a lot of things once they're into your deck. Now, this should come without saying, but just in case anybody doesn't understand what these the slashes versus the plus sign means, anytime you see a slash between statistics means you have to choose one. So I can either use this as a 2 strike fear, or a 3 close quarters, or a 1 movement. Whereas down here, I could use +3 close quarters and +2 movement. I get both of these stats if I choose to exhaust or discard a reputation to get the bottom half here. So anytime you see a plus, you're going to get both of them. Anytime you see a dash, you have to choose one or the other. All right, so those are kind of the main concepts of the game. Now that we've gotten those out of the way, let's talk about turn or round structure, actually. To begin a round, the starting player is going to take the top's tiding card, and we're going to flip it over here. Now, the only thing we care about at this point is the top half of the tidings card. We utilize this middle section here during setup to randomly place the tokens out. And anytime that you battle a ship with the modifier flag at the top, you'll draw a new tidings card, and you would check the modifier down here at the bottom. So these tiding cards are multi-use cards. They're used for a lot of different things during the game. This tidings card, by the way, the green would benefit you. So we would get initiative plus 3 strike fear. This is actually a really good tidings card to gain for us. If the banner was on the red side, then that would benefit your opponent. But for now, we're only concerned with the top half of the card. So there's a little text here. This is essentially an event that you need to read out to everybody. If you're playing solo, read it to yourself. And this event could be a one-time thing, or it could stay in effect for the rest of the round. This one says, once per turn, forfeit the swagger reward of a merchant ship to rest for free without ending your turn. So this is like a little bonus activity players can get this turn. It's very important to not take too much damage. Anytime you take 2 of these bloodshed tokens, you get captured and have to discard a lot of things, reset your ship, and you'll reset your swagger all the way back. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. So being able to forego, in this case, just 2 swagger to rest for free might be very opportunistic for you. So you want to keep this card face up somewhere so that everybody can remember this little bonus for this round only. The last thing we want to look at is the flags here. This means that this imperialist nation, and I'm afraid I don't know what nation this is off the top of my head, but this nation now is providing the letter of marque, which is a symbol of passiveness, of free passage. If you receive the letter of marque from an imperialist nation, that means that that country's navy would not attack you if it saw you out on the water. So for all players, anybody that flies this flag here is passive, is not aggressive to you. Now, you do have the opportunity to attack someone who has given you the letter of marque. You can make that choice, but that does come with some consequences. So this allows you to, as you're sailing forward, we don't have one right now, but let's just say instead of British, this was this same flag on that Navy ship, I could sail into Andros here, pick up a treasure without having to battle this Navy vessel first. Otherwise, as soon as I pass into this spot here with this vessel, a combat will ensue. So those are the 2 things with the Tidings card, is what nation is giving us kind of free passage for the round, which nation do we not have to worry about, and the little event that is taking place. At that point now, this is also when you would draw up your hand for the first time. So at the beginning of the game, every character starts with a hand size of 4. Beginning as you increase your level, you'll increase your hand size to 5, and then eventually to 6. By the way, I'm just playing with my player board right here, simply to condense the size of this massive game for the purposes of this video. Obviously, my Tidings card, my mission card would go here, and my level board would be displayed down there. After we have had the Tidings phase, then we're going to go around and have individual action phases for each player. Now, at this point, if you are playing solo, this would be when the AI bot, which is really just a timer, would take its turn. So let me cover that real quick, because I think this game is one that can be played, especially the campaign modes, can be played well solo. Reduces drastically the amount of time that it takes to play the game and allows you to kind of play through the campaign at your own pace. So I take the first player token here and I place it on top of a pirate deck that is not being used for the game. I remove the flag card off the top, so it's just the 12 cards that make up the pirate deck. And you're going to start by drawing 4 cards, just like you draw 4 cards, and it does not matter what these cards are. You don't even have to flip them over. It doesn't even matter. This is its hand for the round, and you're going to roll the Tidings die for it. In this case, any of the numbers that pop up for the AI bot, that's the number of cards it's going to discard. So it's going to discard 3 cards. I would set those off to the side, and then it just would set this card off to the side. We'll tuck it like that. Its turn is done. The reason this is a timer is because for all games, whoever is the first player, they're referred to as the commander for that round, once they have gone through their entire deck, the round end triggers. So you, again, can choose how many cards you discard on your turn, and you can save some more from round to round. So you're not necessarily going to play through your entire hand each time. When the first player plays out all their cards, that triggers the end of the round. That keeps other people from slow playing their turns maybe until they get to be the first player. This, as solo, forces you to not just slow play everything and take your time, and it creates a timer. This is going to force you to go from round to round, and the only thing that changes for the solo game is that there is a round minimum depending on the difficulty level that you're going to play. So if you're playing, say, on easy difficulty, to complete a global mission, you have 5 rounds, and this creates the timer for the game. All right, but let's get back to what you do when it's your turn. So everybody, including the AI bot, at the beginning of their turn is going to roll the Tidings die. So before you take any actions, you're going to roll this die and see what it says. In this case, I got one of the better outcomes, and that's +3. That means that I get 3 additional movement for this turn alone. Now, let's look down here at our captain's board. Our flag card here just reminds us who our character is. Our captain's stats here are going to help us over time increase our base movement here with our ship stat. Our crew stat is going to increase and allow us to hold more and more crew cards in our deck, and command cards is going to do the same thing for elite cards. As we make it to the end, it's going to give us various things that we can add to our deck, even a merchant ship that we can use as like adding to our fleet. We can use that as a friendly token. This token here represents your base movement. The darkened area here signifies that at the start of the game and from here on out, everybody has at least 3 movement to start the round, unless you roll this one. If you roll this one, then you're going to have to go down 1 from wherever you are. But as you increase, say, your ship stat, if I'm here, I would start here at a base of 3, and I would move up to 5 before I even roll the Tidings die. Since I'm just now starting off the game and I am at a 0 ship stat, I start at 3, but I rolled the +3, and so I'm going to jump up to 6. I have 6 available movement this round, which is a lot, especially beginning of the game. 10 is your maximum. So if you, say, were to bump up here and then you were to play some other cards that would gain you movement anytime you play cards, by the way, and utilize this symbol here with the compass, you just simply bump up your movement. 10 is the maximum. Anything beyond that is wasted. So we've rolled our Tidings die. We've adjusted our movement stat, but let's talk about the other things on this die. So there is the white lookout symbol. The lookout obviously is somebody who would spot other ships. If you roll the white one, another ship is going to enter your location. You're going to take your ship bag and you're going to randomly draw a token out of the bag and add it to your location. Now, with the white symbol, you have an option of either entering combat immediately with this ship or spending a movement to flee to an adjacent space. So in this case, maybe I don't want to take on this merchant ship. I'm not ready. So I would spend 1 movement, boop, to move here into Santiago, the area around Cuba, where there is nobody. And then I can kind of reassess my situation. So that is the white lookout symbol. If you roll the red lookout symbol, a pirate hunter is going to be entering your arena. So instead of pulling a token out of the bag, you're going to come over here to the pirate stack, and either one, doesn't matter, they say to draw from whichever one is taller. So you're going to draw a pirate hunter one, place it into your space, and unfortunately, you now have to enter into combat with the pirate hunter. You cannot run away from the pirate hunter. This may lead you to take damage right off the bat, and we'll talk more again about taking damage in combat here in a little bit, but that is the red die. Not a good spot to be in. We'll put that one back there. And then the last one here is this symbol, where this is going to, first of all, if it's the first time you roll it, or anybody rolls it, you're going to add treasure fleets and slave ships to the board. So they don't start on the board during setup, but at this point, we are going, say we rolled this die, we would take a treasure fleet token, and you always start it here on the silver track, which is in Cartagena. Here, it's going to travel up the silver track, up here to Havana, and then from Havana, it'll become a gold track and travel all the way up to Williamsburg. So you'll, if there are no other treasure fleets on the board, you would place one there, and you can use these little yellow miniatures to just help increase their visibility. You're also going to do the same thing for a slave ship. You would take a slave ship start up here in West Africa, and they now start up there. In the future, if you roll this symbol and there already are treasure fleets and slave ships, you're going to advance them along this dotted line, following kind of the arrows that you can see here. So the slave ship's going to go boop, boop, boop along the African coast, pop out down here, and then come all the way down, ending in Port Royal. The treasure fleets, however, are going to make it to the end of the silver one. If it makes it to the end of the silver one, it's going to pop up in its next movement to the gold track. And when anytime there is not a silver treasure ship on the silver line, and there's one on the gold line, you're then going to add one to the silver line. So there could be up to 2 treasure ships on the map at the same time. The last thing you're going to gain by rolling this side of the die on the Tidings die is a reputation token. So that is the Tidings die. This is how you start every single turn. Not every single round, but every single turn. You're going to roll this die, adjust your movement if necessary, and or, somebody might surprise you in your space, or you'll advance these other NPC tokens around the board. Okay, so now that it is our turn, let's talk about what actions we can take on our turn. So there are various actions you can take on your turn. Not all of them require you to spend cards out of your hand, but let's just talk about them now, and then we'll go into more detail. So obviously you can move. Moving is pretty straightforward. You spend your movement stat, you reduce it down to the left, and you simply move from one territory into an adjacent territory. If you want to take on a land tile here, you don't have to spend movement. You would just simply move your your ship token onto the land space, signifying that you're attacking, in this case, this elite fort, which I don't know why you would do. We'll come back to more movement examples here in a second. You can enter combat, obviously, with a token in your space, either a land token or a ship token. You can scout, which helps you flip over face down tokens or add land tokens to sites. You can boast. Boasting is going to be where you get additional personal missions here. So your personal missions can be fulfilled, but you can fulfill more than one. They're going to give you bonuses throughout the game. You can establish a pirate haven. That means you would take one of your tokens here, place it out on a neutral site like the Cayman Islands, or if you have sacked a location, you would place it there. You can rest, which is going to recover those bloodshed tokens, and you can declare infamy. Again, we're going to cover all of these now in greater detail. So let's first talk about the movement stat. As you saw, we started with a stat of 3. We gained 3 from the Tidings Die, and we are starting here in Nassau. There are no other ships in our location, so we are free to move right off the bat wherever we so wish. Now, it's important to note that there are tokens that are going to be aggressive towards you and tokens that are going to be passive towards you. During the game, all merchant tokens, all pirate tokens, all navy tokens, all pirate hunter tokens are going to be aggressive towards you. So if you enter into their space, you have to conduct combat. So if I enter into this area here, which is divided by this line, I have to enter combat with this merchant ship. The things that are passive to me, things that I can pass on by without entering combat with, are treasure fleets, slave ships, and any navy ship that has the matching letter of mark. So in this case, any ship flying this flag, I could sail into their area and pass on by. So I have 6 movement to spend. Obviously, I can spend that movement to move around the board. Every time I move into an adjacent location, I simply reduce down my stat and I can go all the way to 0. I don't have to spend all my movement moving around. There are other ways to spend movement, which we will talk about here. But it's also important to sometimes save some movement. So anytime that you enter into combat against someone who you don't have initiative against, say a navy ship early on, you're not going to be able to strike fear in the navy. You're not even going to be able to attack them broadside. Since they have the initiative, they're going to attack you broadside. And you have to have enough movement shown on your player board here equal to half or more than their broadside attack, even to enter into close quarters combat with them. If they so outrank you in broadside attack that they are more than double your movement stat, then you're going to take a bloodshed token, you're going to be captured, and some bad things are going to happen. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. So you want to keep in mind that you don't want to sail all the way across the board and then try and say take on a navy vessel, because you won't have movement to outmaneuver their broadside attack to even then get in close for close quarters. So anybody that you don't have initiative against, you have to be able to outmaneuver their broadside attack, then get in close quarters, and then spend your cards in order to build up enough close quarters combat to defeat, say, that navy ship token. Otherwise, that's movement. Movement is pretty simple and straightforward. Again, there's other ways to spend movement we'll talk about here in a second. I mentioned this briefly earlier, but anytime you are in a seaway and there is a land token in that seaway, you can, for free, without spending movement, just move your ship token, your ship miniature onto the land token. And that's basically representative. You have dropped anchor, you've sailed in, and you are attempting to take out that fort, or maybe you're firing cannons at that fort because it's right there on the beach or something like that. But you are assaulting that fort or port or whatever it may be, and you don't need to spend movement to get there. You're already in the general area. So that's movement. Up next is Scout. So Scout is the primary way that you can flip over these face down tokens to see what you're up against, and also to add land tokens to the various places with the flags. So let's just say, for example, I am in this area near Santo Domingo and I want to scout. There's two ways I can scout. I can either spend a reputation and scout, or I can spend 3 movement. So this is another way you can spend movement. So having 6 movement means that I could scout twice and actually then not even move on the map. When you scout, you have the opportunity to either scout a ship token that is face down in an adjacent location. If it's in your location, it's flipped up. So if you ever sail into a location with a face down token, it's going to get flipped up. Sorry, I failed to mention that in the movement stat. But say I'm here, I could flip over either of these two by spending 3 movement. I can flip this over. It's a merchant ship. I have initiative against that one, so maybe I'll go after that one here with my next point of movement. I could do that and move in and have a battle. Or you can scout a land area in your seaway. So again, a seaway is a individual space on the board, and in this case we have Santo Domingo here. So I would go into my bag with my square tokens and I would pull one out here and it gets placed here. So in this case we have a fort. It's not an elite fort like this one, doesn't have the flag, but it's still a fort. It's got some decent cannon statistics, some close quarters. There's a lot of soldiers in there with swords. It's going to give us a lot of swagger, but probably not something we want to take on right away. There are plenty of other tokens here, which look like this, which are simply ports, which are much easier to sack early on in the game. Either way, once you have scouted, this token stays here until somebody sacks that location, until they take down the fort or take out the port, in which case the token is removed and their pirate token is placed on the board in its place. So I cannot scout a land location that's already there, and I cannot scout in a location that has someone else's token because that location's already been sacked and it's under some other pirate's control. But scouting is a great way to help you understand what is in your vicinity and go into a fight knowing what you can take on before you just go in blindly. Up next is going to be the Boast Action. So anytime you are at a neutral site, so Exuma, like this one here, or if somebody had taken out St. Domingo, doesn't have to be our site, but anytime it's a pirate site, so isn't flying a country's flag, you can boast. To boast, you would simply spend 1 reputation, draw 2 personal mission cards, and pick one, and put the other one at the bottom of the personal missions deck. Now, you always start the game with 1 personal mission. Some of them might be harder to take on than the others, and you have to be able to have completed 1 personal mission and then reach the game's goal, which in a global mission, it's an objective stated on the card, or on a standard mission, it's 60 or 120 points. You have to reach that benchmark and have completed a personal mission. So maybe you want to pick up another one that might be easier, or they offer you some pretty decent rewards. So it may be just a way of giving you some direction early on in the game to work towards something else. If you have any personal missions in your area that have not been completed at the end of the game, however, they are going to give you negative swagger based on their swagger count. So this one here, Pearls and More Pearls, If I weren't to have completed this by the end of the game, it would be -5 swagger against me. So, and that is the Boast action. Up next is going to be the Rest action. So for the Rest action, you need to be, again, at a location that is either controlled by you or is a neutral site, like this one, or is controlled by another pirate. But again, you cannot be resting at anywhere that's flying some other country's flag. To rest, you would simply pay 1 reputation, and then you can discard 1 bloodshed token. Now, gaining 2 bloodshed tokens means you're going to be captured and a lot of bad things happen. So being able to discard 1 is pretty much what you want to be able to do. Anytime you gain 1, you want to look to rest before you gain that second one. If you are in a location that is controlled by you, say I sacked St. Domingo earlier, I don't have to pay that reputation. That's a location controlled by me. I don't have to convince anyone to let me go and rest there. But if you are at someone else's location or one of these neutral locations, that's when you have to pay a reputation. Now, if you happen to have a card in your hand with the rest symbol on it, in this case, I would still have to pay a reputation to be able to play this bottom part of the card. But if I can play this card and use this rest action here, I can actually rest anywhere on the map. In the middle of a seaway, I can be, just have completed a battle against a land site. It does not matter. That symbol allows you to rest essentially for free anywhere you'd like. The last benefit you gain from resting is being able to take a card from your discard pile and add it back into your hand. Up next is establish a pirate haven. So this is going to be anytime that this isn't the same as sacking. So if you sack a location, you control that. To establish a pirate haven, you're simply going to be in the same seaway as a neutral site. You're going to pay 1 reputation, and you're going to place your marker here. This just gives you an area that you can rest for free. So if you know that you're going to be, say, in this area of the board a lot during the game, that's where you want to accomplish your mission, it may behoove you to come down here and say, establish a pirate haven at Bequia or Bequa or whatever that is. This means that you can rest for free here. Everyone else is going to have to pay 1 reputation. Unfortunately, they don't pay you, but this is a competitive game, so you may want to have that advantage over the other players. That is an action you can take, establish a pirate haven. Now for the big action, and that is the combat action. Most of the actions you're going to take on your turn are going to be combat actions. This is the best way to gain swagger, which is going to increase the level of your pirate, which is going to allow you to gain more cards to your deck. Everything kind of stems from combat. So we briefly touched on this already, but we'll just go through 2 examples here against a merchant ship and against a Navy ship. So first off, we are going up against our merchant ship. If you remember, at level 1, we have initiative against the merchant ships. We have 4 cards in our hand. So if we sail into the area of this merchant ship, we have the opportunity to either attack it broadside or strike fear in it to the point that it just gives up. Sometimes in the golden age of the pirate era, simply flying the Blackbeard flag would strike fear into merchants, and they would simply raise the white flag. Blackbeard could board for free and take what he wanted, and nobody got hurt. So if you have initiative, you can take one of 2 options to begin with. You can attempt to strike fear into the ship. In this case, you are having to produce a number of strike fear icons. Here I get 2, or if I paid a reputation, I could gain 3 instead. This strike fear option only has to be higher than the close quarters combat stat of the token. Think of this as you fly your flag, your Blackbeard flag, Queen Anne's Revenge. They know it's the Queen Anne's Revenge. The close quarters represents the individual sailors on the ship. If your fear stat is higher than their stat, they're going to give up. That's how I look at it. Or you can compare your broadside attack, all right? If you compare your broadside attack, so say you don't have enough strike fear, you just don't have the right cards, but you do have a decent amount of, or like this one here, where you could simply produce 3 broadside attack against their 2 broadside attack. In this case, if yours is higher, you would take them out by cannons. They fly the white flag, you get to board them, and you have defeated them for free. Both of these options only come if you have initiative against the token. All right, but these are the 2 fastest ways to take out a token that you have initiative against. So ideally, you want to have initiative against another vessel. If you don't happen to have enough broadside attack and or fear stat to get over their close quarters stat, then you're going to have to board the ship. Since you have initiative, you don't need to worry about any movement stats to board the ship. You simply would move to the close quarters combat, and then you're going to have to discard cards or have crew cards out in front of you where you can come up with stats equal to or higher than their stat. In this case, they only have a 1, so I could play this blow the man down card, and I've taken out the merchant. If you haven't figured it out, merchant vessels are the easy pickings at the beginning of the game to help you earn your base of swagger, help you level up your ship. Those are going to be what you want to target. Now, once we have defeated this ship, oh, and I forgot to mention, and we did talk about this earlier, that since this ship has this banner at the top, the red and green banner, we would want to have drawn one of these cards. In this case, we would look here and we get the benefit of doubling our broadside attack stat. So probably means that we would be successful in the broadside attack. But let's find another one here. This one here would mean that they get 2 additional broadside attack. Their stat would move up to 4. Say I went into this thinking, oh, I can take them out with my broadside. They would say, oh, no, we've got some hidden cannons. And they would actually force you into close quarters combat before you realized it. So that's how the combat modifier works. Let's put this merchant ship off to the side though, and now let's talk about combat against someone who we don't have initiative against. So if we don't have initiative, that means they're chasing us down, all right? We are on the defense, we're on the run. So this is where movement comes into play and having the movement available. Now, anytime you are comparing movement during combat, you don't actually have to spend it. You just have to have it on your board, so that's important to know. The first thing you're going to do is compare broadside attack, in this case 9, versus movement. And if they have more than double your movement in broadside attack, you will take a bloodshed token, a wound essentially, and you have been captured. So ideally, you would want to have in this case, and anytime there is rounding to be done in this game, a lot of games you round down. In this game, you're going to round up. So half of 9 is 4.5. So you would want at least 4 movement to be able to survive their broadside attack. Think of this as maneuvering around, getting out of the way of the cannons until you can either flee or board the ship and take them out via swords. So say I have 4 or 5 movement, I have passed the test of having at least enough movement not to get captured. Ideally, well, let's just continue with this scenario. Say I only have 5 movement here. They've hunted me down. They've got 9 broadside attack. I only have 5 movement. That is more than half. In this case, I'm still going to take a bloodshed token. I don't have enough movement to get away from them, but I have enough movement that I'm not being captured. My ship's not being sunk. I'm not in dire straits. After this, I have the option to either flee. So I would spend 1 point of movement to move to an adjacent region that is free of tokens. So say we were up here in Bicois, St. Vincent area, I could flee down to Barbados. Or if I wanted to, I could then enter close quarters combat. I can see what their close quarters combat is. I would have already drawn a combat modifier. In this case, actually, this symbol here on this Tidings card means that I would gain initiative. So you always draw these first. That means I could use my Strike Fear stat against them if I had enough to beat a 5, or my broadside I could compare to theirs. So, again, if you can't outmaneuver them, you can either choose, as long as you have at least half of their broadside attack, you take a wound, but then you can choose to either flee or go in against close quarters combat. If you have less than half, you take a wound and you're captured. If, however, we are lucky enough to have equal to or more than their movement stat, that means we are a very fast, agile ship. We're able to outmaneuver them and then get up alongside of them. And at this point, technically, we could flee. We would not take a wound. We could flee for free. We would spend 1 movement, move to an adjacent location, or we can then enter close quarters combat. The biggest thing here is that we haven't taken a wound. So hopefully that makes sense. There's actually a little flow chart here that's very handy for combat. It's on the back of the manual, and it just kind of tells you, do you have initiative? Yes or no. Are you doing Strike Fear? Are you doing broadside attack? Did you win either of these? Yes, you win. No, you come down here. No, you come down here. So on and so forth until you get to close quarters combat. Did you have more? No, you're captured. Yes, you win. But that is combat. At the end of combat, no matter what, oh, well, not no matter what, sorry. At the end of combat, if you are successful, if you were not captured or you did not flee, if you successfully defeated the token, you're going to gain the amount of swagger instantly. So you would move your token around the outside of the board, and the amount of reputation. If the token had the combat modifier banner at the top, you're going to keep this token. At this point, a lot of times you will have increased your swagger, and maybe you have reached a milestone where you have increased in level. Anytime you increase at level, you immediately would go down here and gain the benefits listed, possibly increasing your hand size, knowing who you have initiative over. For these, anytime you have, say, initiative over ports, everything below you, you also have initiative. So you always have initiative against merchant ships. But it's not until you get down to level 5 that you have initiative against slaver ships. When you do, however, you can take out the Navy, ports, pirates, and merchants. Here you would also get initiative against forts, and then all the way at the bottom, treasure fleets and pirate hunters gives you initiative. So as you're counting up your swagger, check to see if you reach those green benchmarks around the edge of the table. The last thing you're going to do is if the tokens do not have the little flag here that is a combat modifier, they have to go in appropriate stacks. So we during setup the enemies of the pirate nation stacks up here in the corner. So merchant ships are going to be added to a specific stat, and that's way up here. Add that merchant ship to that stack. Those stacks have a number underneath them based on player count, and when those stacks are reached, you're actually going to add new ships to the board. So for merchant ships, if enough merchant ships get taken out, you're actually going to add a new Navy ship. We stacked 2 sets of face-down Navy ships over there. A Navy ship's going to be added to the board by flipping over a Tidings card and setting it there. Anytime you take out a land site, you're going to flip it over and you're going to add it to the land site stack. All right, if too many ports and forts and things like that get taken out, the pirate hunters come out. And you would take the top token from that stack. Again, you would flip over a Tidings card, and a pirate hunter now enters the fray. Anytime a treasure fleet, so say we got brave enough to take out this treasure fleet, all right? Any single treasure fleet, a pirate is going to come out, pirate hunter, and any single slave ship that we take out, 2 Navy ships are going to come out. That is why these stacks are over here. So keep in mind, at the end of combat, you're going to do something with these tokens. You're either going to keep it if it's got the modifier banner on it. If it's a merchant ship, land tile, slave, or treasure token, you're going to place it over there. If it's a Navy ship, if it's a pirate ship, you're going to add it back into the bag. The last and final action you can take on your turn is to declare Infamy. So to do this, you actually are going to need to have completed and been successful in combat against tokens with the modifier banner here. We talked about how if your token has the modifier banner, you keep it off to the side. Once you have accumulated 3, and this is the maximum you can hold on to, you will want to travel either to a port that you control, or a friendly location, one with just the red pirate flag. And this is where you want to take an action similar to boasting, but that is to declare Infamy. And you're actually going to trade in these tokens. Now you have 2 options. You can either trade in 3 tokens, so you save up 3, you trade in all 3, and you get to choose one of the 3 face-up elite cards that are in the elite card row. You don't have to pay, you're paying for it with your Infamy tokens, but you simply add it face down to the top of your deck, meaning you're going to draw it the next time you need to draw up cards. Or if you, for some reason, don't want an elite card added to your deck and you really need reputation, you can instead trade in each token for 1 reputation. So you could trade in, say, 2 tokens and gain 2 reputation. Maybe you might want to do this if you haven't quite gotten to 3 yet, but you really are in need of some reputation to spend later in that turn. You might want to make a stop at some place that you can declare Infamy, trade in some tokens, get your reputation, and move on. But this is the easiest way to get the elite cards into your deck, other than certain bonuses and getting to the end of your command track. The trick with these, though, is that if it's a merchant token that you are declaring for Infamy, this token then, it's been set off to the side in your area, is then going to go into the Enemies of the Pirate Republic track up there, and that could trigger some Navy ships entering the board. So just keep that in mind, but you can only hold on to 3. So when you get to 3, you might as well use them to declare Infamy at that point and get yourself an elite card. At the end of your turn, ideally you have played out some cards over here into your discard pile. If you have more than 1 card left, and this could even be 3 cards left in your hand, say you only needed to play 1 for an action. If you have more than 1 card in your hand, you will need to discard 1 card. Not down to 1, just discard 1 card. This keeps the game flowing, keeps especially that first player from extending the round longer than it needs to be. The only time you can ever hold or not have to discard 1 card out of your hand at the end of your turn is if your draw deck is empty. If your draw deck is empty, that means the end of the round is going to be happening sometime very soon, so you can hold on to all the cards you have in your hand. But once everyone has essentially run out of cards or passed or reached the end of the round due to the first player running out of cards, then the round is over and we will go to the cleanup phase. This is the 3rd and final phase. We had the Tidings phase, we had the actions phase, and now we have the cleanup phase. First thing you're going to do is you're going to take that Tidings card that you've had out this whole time, and it's going to just be discarded. You can easily place it at the bottom of the Tidings deck. The Tidings deck is big enough. All right, so those letters of marque are no longer in play. Those special effects are no longer in play. Each player then is going to discard all of their cards, whether they have cards left in their draw pile, cards in their hand. Everything is going to go into their discard pile. They're going to shuffle up their deck. This hopefully will include some new cards maybe, and reset their deck, creating a brand new, fresh draw pile. So unlike other deck builders where you simply play until you don't have cards to draw, then you shuffle up your deck and discard, here, running out of cards and needing to shuffle your deck signifies the end of the round. And the start of the new round, you're always going to start with a new, fresh, shuffled up deck of cards. At this point, you're also going to look out on the board. If the board ever gets to the point where there's 5 or less ship tokens on the board, you're going to do another round of spawning 22 ship tokens onto the board, similar to like we did in setup. If you did not see that video, my recommendation is pull 22 out, put them face down, mix them up, and then draw your cards one at a time here. This is where you're using the interior portion of the Tidings card, so you would place a ship token in the Santo and Toa region, and also each region adjacent to Santo and Toa. So if we look on here, that one shows us that that's way up there. So you would put one here and here. These regions are not adjacent. So we did that earlier during setup, obviously. If there's already a ship token there, you would skip over it. And you would just keep doing this until you have all 22 ship tokens put out. And that is done during the cleanup phase, so before you start a new round. The last thing you're going to do is reset the crew and elite den. So any cards that are sitting out in these two displays will get put on the bottom of their respective pile, and 3 new cards will come out. Because people aren't buying those cards up every turn, so some of them might sit out and get stale. This is going to be a way to shuffle them up through the throughout the game. Last but not least, the first player token, which for me, I have it sitting on my solo player card because it's always going to stick with them. When you're playing multiplayer, however, whoever has the lowest amount of swagger is going to become the commander. That means they're going to be in control of how quickly the round goes. That'll give them ensure that they play a full round how they want to see fit. That's a little bit of a catch-up mechanic. So first player doesn't rotate. It goes to the player that has the lowest amount of swagger at the end of the round. At this point, then you would, assuming the end of the game is not triggered, you would then play another round. You would draw another Tidings card, and people then would start taking their turns by rolling the Tidings die and taking their actions. The end of the game is triggered when at least one person has completed at least one personal mission and reached the objective for the game. So in a standard game, that's either 60 or 120 swagger points. Or if you are playing with the missions, you simply note on the back of the mission card what the objective and outcome of the game needs to be. So if you're playing a mission, you do not need to hit a 60-point swagger threshold. For example, the first mission, that Platte Fleet mission, is quite quick. So you're probably only going to play 1 or 2 rounds, and somebody's probably going to accomplish something by that point, and then you're just going to move on to the next mission in the campaign. You don't need to wait until somebody then reaches 60 points. But that's going to trigger the end of the game. At that point, you would look to see if anybody has failed to complete a personal mission. If so, for example, if I had this sitting here and I wasn't able to complete it, those are negative points. That's the only point adjustment you need to make at the end of the game. Otherwise, whoever has the most points is the winner. If you're playing a campaign, you simply read the text. Winners usually get additional cards to carry over with them to the next mission, and it tells you which mission to move on to depending on the outcome of the game. That is the basics for how to play the Pirate Republic Africa Gambit. The next few things I'm going to cover are minor things that you can easily read about in the rulebook when that time comes. But if you're interested in learning about these little smaller rules, feel free to continue watching. The first one that we're going to talk about here is one that I've mentioned several times and told you I would cover near the end of the video, and that is being captured. So you can be captured during combat if you're not able to flee, or if you ever take 2 bloodshed tokens, you are going to be captured. And there are various things that need to happen when you are captured. So if you're captured during combat, obviously the combat ends immediately. The token stays out there and you are going to be the one to move. Anytime you are captured, you're going to have to take your ship token and move it to either the closest pirate haven, which is, one where you have your token, a neutral pirate site like Exuma. So if I was down here, this would probably be the closest one. Here, I would go there, or Nassau. If Nassau is the closest, that's where you would go to. So you physically pick up and remove your ship. You're going to lay it on its side as well. This is mainly for multiplayer purposes, but we'll talk about why here in just a second. You're going to discard your bloodshed tokens. So usually you are captured because you have acquired 2 of these bloodshed tokens. You're going to discard those. You're also going to move your swagger marker backwards to the next milestone. So this is a little tricky, but let's say, for example, get this one in frame. So if we have reached level 4 over here, which is at 38 points, if I get my marker here from the start space, and I was, say, right here at 42 points, and I was captured, then I need to back up here to the green space. If you get captured early on the game and you haven't even reached the level 2 spot yet, you simply move back halfway, half the distance to the goal is how I think of it, back to the start space. So if you're, say, at 4 swagger total, you would move back to 2. I have another pirate thing here, and I choose to enter into a battle against this Portuguese naval ship. I can request whoever this player is if they would like to enter into what's called company combat. This is just shared combat, in which case they either have to be in the same space as me or adjacent to me, and they will get a portion of the loot. So I have to determine before we go into combat, how much swagger am I going to give them? Am I going to give them the reputation token? Am I going to get to keep it? This is not something that can be discussed and then reneged on. So if you promise them something, it has to be given. And then they're going to be able to play a single card to help your cause. That card will then be discarded in their discard area, but the stats that you gain from the card are added to your stats for that round of combat. Now you can discuss ahead of time, if multiple people are around you, hey, I need one more strike fear statistic to be able to survive this fight. Is anybody willing to sail alongside me and help me strike fear into this Portuguese Navy vessel? In that case, somebody would say, yeah, I have a card that I can contribute that's going to give you 1 strike fear. I want 2 of the swagger points. You agree? Good. That's that. That's how you participate cooperatively in combat. Just if you have been captured and your ship is on its side, you cannot participate. Even if you have a card that you could contribute, you cannot participate until you have stood your ship back up. The last thing I want to talk about as far as minor rules is friendly ships. So you'll notice that at the end of the crew track and at the end of the command track, you're going to get a crew card and or a command card. Perfect. However, if you make it to the end of your ship track, this is going to boost your movement at +3, and then you get over here, you're actually going to gain a merchant token from the bag. So in this case, you would dive into the bag of ship tokens, and you would keep pulling out until you pulled a merchant out. So there's my merchant ship. We would return all the rest back to the bag. This ship is now friendly to you. It's part of your fleet. They have decided to go AWOL and join the pirate life instead of delivering their goods. This token now can be used to add its stats to any one of your combat per round. So if I gain a merchant ship and then I choose to use my ship token, I would just flip it over. And then during the cleanup phase is when I would, so you'll get it back at, during the next round. Now, a few things to note is that when you max out your ship stat row, that's when you get the merchant token. If you have maxed out all 3, your ship, your crew, and your command row, you're actually going to replace the merchant ship with a random pirate ship. So again, you're going to dive into your bag, pull out the first pirate ship you see, and return the merchant ship back to the bag. Pirate ships generally have higher stats on them. So this is now going to be added to your fleet. And 2 things with the pirate ship. Pirate ships inherently, when you use them, are going to add +3 to your strike fear stat. And if you fail to have initiative with either the merchant ship or the pirate ship, they're going to give you +2 or +4 movement respectively. In the case that you do not have initiative, this is going to help you outmaneuver the broadside attacks and or possibly get into the position to flee. So hopefully that made sense. It makes sense in the rule book. It makes sense once you start playing. Basically, friendly ships, your fleet is only ever going to be increased by 1 extra token, which you can use once per round to gain additional benefits. They will give you movement, automatic movement benefits if you don't have initiative, and the pirate ship is going to give you automatic strike fear benefits. Other than that, you're just looking at the statistics on the token. This one never gets discarded like the Infamy tokens do. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is everything you need to know in order to play the Pirate Republic Africa Gambit. Again, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Have a great day.